So in the last session, we have discussed about JavaScript executor, right? So how JavaScript, when we need to use, what is JavaScript executor and when we need to use it in some specific scenarios, like where we can't actually automate some things with the Selenium WebDriver, we can use JavaScript executor, right? So now in this session, we'll discuss about screenshots. So say for example, we write some code, right? So this is our script. So at some point, our script has failed for some reason, right? So for that, we might actually have logs, or we can write try catch, and we can also write some sysouts to print it on something on the console, right? So along with that, so if you wanted to know that particular position, so we write like the script when our script is executed, right, line by line. So what are we automating? We will be automating something, some specific scenario, right, step by step. So at what step our test case has failed, right? So that, how do we know that? So we can know that by writing some sysouts or logs, right? So we will be also using test engine. So we'll be discussing in the next sessions. So with all of this, we can know like the failure, right? Along with that, we can also say, for example, at this particular step, the test case has failed. Say it has 10 steps. At the third step, it has failed. So at that particular point of time, I wanted to get the screenshot of my web page. What is the status at that particular point? What's the status of the web elements? Or what is the status of my web page? How it looks like when it is failed? I wanted to know about that, right? So in that case, we can take a screenshot of it. So when we take a screenshot of it, so you'll come to know when you look at that web page, you'll come to know that what the failure is, right? So in that case, screenshot will be very handy. So from there, you can actually debug what the issue is, right? So capturing screenshot is crucial in debugging the issues. So let's actually, now we'll see how to actually capture the screenshots. Capture screenshot. So we can capture screenshots, like we can either capture full page and also specific web element. So we can either capture screenshot of the whole web page, or we can capture screenshot of specific web element. So say for example, so this is the web page I am automating. I might be automating this login form, username, password, and login, right? So in this case, I wanted to get, say for example, this test case is failed for some reason. I wanted to get the screenshot of this whole web page, right? So how do we get that? So let's see that now. How to take the screenshot. So for today, I'll create a new package. I'll call it as day35, and then we'll create a new class in it. We'll call it as capture screenshots. So we have to navigate to the page, right? So we'll create a WebDriver instance and we'll instantiate it to the Chrome driver. And then we'll navigate to the particular that URL which we wanted to automate, where we wanted to take the screenshot. And then we'll maximize the window. All right. Now, what we wanted to do, we wanted to take a screenshot, right? So if you remember, so in the last session, we have discussed about like where JavaScript executor So, and also take screenshot. Both are the interfaces, and they are actually coming from like, they both are implemented by remote WebDriver class, right? So let me get back that image. So if you see here, the WebDriver, right? So this WebDriver is an interface which is been implemented by remote WebDriver class, right? And also remote WebDriver class is also implementing JavaScript executor. So this is also an interface. Along with that, there's another interface called takes screenshot. This is takes screenshot, right? So this is also been implemented by remote WebDriver class, right? So we are going to use this interface now to actually take the screenshot. So how we are going to do that? We'll see that now. So first what we'll do is we'll actually have a driver dot, okay, like this it will not come. So we'll take screenshot. We'll use take screenshot of driver dot. So we'll capture the screenshot in a file, right? So file is an object. So file is a class. So we'll actually create an object of file class, and then we'll have driver. We'll assign driver to it, and then we'll typecast it. So we'll type driver, WebDriver, and so if you see WebDriver and take screenshot also have no direct relationship, right? So for that, what we can do is we can actually typecast it like how we did it in the last session, right? So typecast it like this. We'll typecast it to take screenshot. Takes screenshot. This whole part we can put it in another brace again. Take screenshot, we need to import it from org.openqa.selenium. See, takes screenshot is an interface, right? Take screenshot dot get screenshot as output type. You have to specify the output type dot file. So what does this mean? So this means, so I wanted to take a screenshot, right? So for that, I'm using take screenshot interface, right? So we need WebDriver instance. Using WebDriver only, so the source of driving the automation is WebDriver for us, right? So that WebDriver, we are typecasting it to take screenshot interface because it has no relationship with the WebDriver directly. But both are being implemented by remote WebDriver, and Chrome driver is actually extending remote WebDriver. So it has an indirect relationship. So that we are using it here. So this driver, so we are actually typecasting it to take screenshot, and this get screenshot is a method within the take screenshot. So get screenshot as is the method which we need to use, and it takes a parameter as output type. So how you need the output type? Okay, I'll take the screenshot using get screenshot as, will take a screenshot, right? Screenshot. But how do you want that screenshot to be saved it as? So that output type we have to specify. That output type, so we have something called output type dot file, right? So type dot file. So this is again an interface, output type dot file. So as a file, we wanted it. So if you see, get screenshot is returning file object, right? So we captured it into a file object, and we are having a file object as screenshot. All right. Now, how we wanted? So we wanted to actually, we have a screenshot which is a file object. So the file object you can't actually view it directly, right? So it will be like a binary. So we wanted it into some image format. Only then we can view it, right? So for that, what we can do is we can copy that file object using fileutils.copy file. So, but this fileutils is coming from a different package. So it actually comes from the Apache Commons IO fileutils, right? So fileutils actually comes from Apache Commons. It's a different package. So how do we get it? So it is not present within the Selenium package. So or Java, right? It's a third party one. So how do you get it? So in order to get any third party ones, right? So how do we get it? We actually get it from the Maven repository. So Maven repository. Go to Maven repository, just type in Apache Commons. So you can see Commons IO here, right? So just get this, the latest version, copy it, and then you can have it in your form.xml. What does form.xml does? So we get the form.xml when we create a Maven project, and we can specify the dependencies here. So these dependencies are the third-party library jars, right? So when we do like this, so we actually get the right click, and then you can say source format. So when we add a dependency, the commons IO. So this commons IO is coming from Apache. Apache is an open source. So it is actually providing some library called commons IO. So that we are adding it into our form.xml. So with this, what happens is the commons IO. So the jars which are present in commons IO with this version are will be downloaded onto our disk, right? So we need this for using the class called fileutils. So once we do that, so what we need to do is, as a best practice, you should actually click on project and update Maven project. You see update Maven project here, right? Or you can right click on your project, go to Maven and update project. So both ways you can do it, update project. And then click. You see, updating Maven project is building, right? So that's a best practice. Whenever you add a new dependency to your form.xml. All right, now we got that commons.io, right? So now you can use this fileutils.copy fileutils class. So fileutils class is coming from org.apache.commons.io package. So we didn't have this package in our project, added to our project. So we added it now, right? So this we need it for using fileutils class. So import fileutils. So it is coming from apache.commons.io package. All right. So now you can close this form.xml for now. And if you see, so it has a method called copy file. So we'll use copy file. So source will be screenshot and target. We can have it like this, something like this. New file of, we wanted to create a new file. So where we wanted to create, so I will create a package. I'll create a new package here. What is this? Okay, anyway. So if you see here, new file. So I'm gonna create a new folder here. So let's create a new folder. How do you create? Right click on your project, new, and folder, right? So I'll call it as screenshots. Whatever screenshots I'm gonna take, I'm gonna put it in this folder, right? Screenshots slash slash, and I'll call this as my login page. Login page dot, you can say PNG, right? Or you can just say error login page. Whenever there is an error, we wanted to capture, right? So you'll add some code here, which will actually, have some interaction with that login page. Then we'll actually take a screenshot. So this will return. So this will actually ask you to surround with try or catch or throws declaration, because this file might not be present, right? Or this path might not be present. So in that case, what to do? So it knows. So this is like we have discussed this, right? So checked exception. This is called as checked exception. So JVM knows Like whenever you're using this, it knows it is a copy file. So what do you want me to do when the target location is not present is what it is asking. So you're asking it, yeah, you can go ahead and throw the IO exception is what you're saying, right? So with this, what happens? So a screenshot will be taken for the complete page. So for the complete page, a screenshot will be taken of this, and that screenshot is saved as a file object. So we can't actually view the file object as it. So we wanted to have it copied as an image file. So we are using copy file method of FileUtils class, which is coming from Apache Commons IO package, right? So for that, copy file actually takes two parameters, source and target. Source is our file object, and then target is where we wanted to copy the file as, right? So now let us execute this. Now it opens, and now if you go back and refresh the screenshots folder, right click, refresh. You can click on project, refresh. And you can see within the screenshots, we got a PNG file. So if you click on it, you can see the image, right? So this image, it has taken the complete web page as a screenshot, right? So if you are trying to log in and say, for example, you might get some error, right? Some, say, for example, incorrect username or password in this case, right? So in that case, when you get a screenshot, right? So you'll come to know that the test case has failed, but at what step or during the failure, what's the status of the web page, you can capture it as a screenshot and you can view it so that you'll get some overview of what the error is, right? So why the error has occurred. So at least it will become a starting point for debug, right? Debugging. So that's how we can actually use this, take the screenshot, right? Using the take screenshot interface. So now we have seen how to take a complete screenshot, or I mean complete web page as a screenshot, right? Now I wanted to take a specific part. Say for example, so this was our page, right? So we can close this Maven. Now, say for example, I wanted to take only this part, whatever is in black wizard, right? So right click inspect. So if you see here, so this part I wanted to get only this part as a screenshot, right? So how do you get it? So if you select this part within this, if you select this login credentials wrapper inner, right? So this part we wanted to get it as a screenshot. The highlighted part we wanted to take screenshot, not the complete web page, but only this highlighted part within this black widget, right? So this only this part we wanted to get it as a screenshot. So in that case, what we need to do is we need to actually get the web element of that. So that particular web element we need to capture, and we can after that. So first we need to capture the driver.find element by.xpath. So this is the web element for which we wanted to take a screenshot, right? So we can say we can capture it into a web element, and I'll call this as credentials. So this for this we wanted the screenshot. So we can use the same object, same file object which we created earlier. Screenshot equal to credentials dot get screenshot as output as file. We have file object now. So we wanted to, so we are taking the screenshot of a particular web element here, right? So this actually takes the earlier part actually takes screenshot of the complete web page. So the difference between previous one and this one is we are actually locating a particular element for which we wanted to take the screenshot, right? So the same method, get screenshot as, right? So the web element, you can use it like this, and then credentials dot get screenshot as, right? And we get the screenshot. Again, we'll use this part, FileUtils dot copy. So within the screenshots, we wanted to save it, but we'll say error in credentials. Right? That's it. So if you run it, we have to get the screenshot of only that portion, which we actually identified, right? Which we located on the web page. That part, we need to get the screenshot. So it's very simple. So only thing we need to remember is, so take screenshot. Take screenshot is an interface, and get screenshot as is a method. So if you can remember only these two, right? So you can actually capture the screenshot. That's it. It is done. So if you go back, refresh the project, then you should be seeing the new screenshot. See, error credentials. Now, if you see, the only that part, the highlighted part, the credentials part has been taken as a screenshot. So in the same way, you can capture, like, say, for example, this login button. So if it is disabled or if it is enabled, why it was failed during it click, when you click on it. So in that case, you can actually capture this web element, login button as a web element, and you can take a screenshot of this button, only this button as well, and so on, right? So like this, you can take the screenshot of complete web page or a particular web element. So key takeaways here are, like, take screenshot. We have to use this interface, and then what's the method? Get screenshot as is a method. That's it. So this is how we actually capture the screenshots. Is that clear? How to capture screenshots? Hope it is clear. Okay, I'll take it as yes, and I'll proceed with the next topic. So we do have something called Chrome options. So what Chrome options are? So if you see here, not only Chrome options, so like for any browser, say for example, if you are running your test on Firefox, it has Firefox options. So Edge options, and so on, right? So for each browser, we'll have one class which with that browser name, Chrome options, Firefox options, Edge options, etc. So what do we mean by that is, so say for example, first take Chrome. So what are Chrome options is, so within the Chrome, you will be having settings, right? So if you click on the settings, so you'll be having so many settings here, right? So if you wanted to actually, have these settings, configure from your code, from the WebDriver, Selenium WebDriver. So how do you actually configure it? So for that, we have something called Chrome options. Using these Chrome options, we can actually, set the preferences for your browser at runtime. So how are we going to do that? We'll see that now. So the first part we'll see. So I'll create a class here, new class for that. And first one, we'll see headless Chrome. So what is headless is, so when you run your program, right now what's happening? So when we do this driver.get, right? So when we launch this WebDriver driver equal to new Chrome driver with this single line of code, so the Chrome browser window gets launched, right? So and the execution starts, like it navigates to the URL, maximizes it, and so on, right? So when we run the test, when we run your test case, automate the test case and run it in headless mode, then the window will not be opened, right? So the UI part or the window, right? Browser window will not be opened, but the test will be performed in the backend, right? So, but you can't actually view the directory. what's happening regarding the test. But the test will be ran inside internally, and you'll get the right output, like how you if you run it in the like no, usual test, right? So in the same way, the test will be ran, but it will be headless. Headless in the sense you can't actually view the browser, right? So the browser will not be launched to view for us, right? So that's called headless. So we'll see the advantages of it. So first, let's see how to do that, right? So I'll get some part from here. So how do we actually set the Chrome options? So Chrome options. So using Chrome options class itself, we can do that. Chrome options class. So I'll call it as options and new Chrome options. So we'll create an instance of Chrome options. All right. So now options dot. So add arguments is a method. Add arguments, and then you can provide something called some value called headless. So with this, what happens? And then so with this, what happens is so Chrome when Chrome browser is launched, right? It knows it has to run headless. Headless in the sense the browser will not be open and it will not be visible for us, but the test will be running in the backend, right? So this options object has to be passed as a to the constructor of Chrome driver. That's it. So only these changes we need to make. The other part will be the same. So the other part will be the same, right? So the other part in this is, say for example, we just wanted to test this, right? So for that, what we can do is we can just get the title of the page, and then we can validate it, something like that. If my title equals, what is the title of it? Title of this page is Swag Labs, right? So Swag Labs, then just print it as my test path, or else just print it as test fail. Because we are gonna run this in headless mode, right? So we don't know what happens. Like if it is really opening this web page, navigating to this web page, then we'll be getting the title of it, right? So we wanted to validate that title. The same use case, like when you wanted to run it. So first, if you want, we can even run it. Say for example, let's comment this first for now, and I'll show you a normal flow, right? So if you see here, it opens a Chrome browser window, right? And then it navigates to a particular URL, and the page title of it will be validated, right? So now after that, we'll see like how do you run in the headless mode. Then you'll know. You'll easily get it, right? Yeah, this is done. Now if you observe, so test pass, right? So how the test pass, it actually got the title from the WebDriver method called getTitle, right? This title has been validated. It was Swag Labs. So it says test pass. All right. Now, what you are going to do here is, so if you observe, I'll just enable this. So what are these? These are the Chrome options. So these are the settings for the Chrome browser. So these are the settings at the browser level. So what we are doing here is using Chrome options class. There's a class called Chrome options. This is specific to the browser, Chrome browser, right? So like this, you'll have one class each for one browser. Like if you wanted to set the preferences or settings you wanted to change for Firefox browser, it will be Firefox option. If you wanted to change something for Edge browser, it will be Edge options and so on, right? So for now, we are working with Chrome browser. So I'm using Chrome options class and created an instance of Chrome options class. And then this object dot add arguments. Add arguments is a method where we are passing a value as headless, right? So with this, what happens is, so even though when we say WebDriver driver equal to new Chrome driver, this will not be launched, but still this test will be done in the backend. So we'll see that now. So when I execute this, see what happens. Okay, so we didn't pass this as the options. So we created the options instance. We had to pass it to the constructor of Chrome driver, right? So pass this to the Chrome driver constructor, right? Now observe what happens. So if I run this, See, test pass, right? Did it launch any browser? Did you see the action? Any actions? No, right? But still the test went through. So without launching the browser window, the test will be done, right? So this test has been successfully executed and we have seen the output as well, test pass, right? So only thing is this driver will not, this Chrome browser will not be launched and it will not be visible for us, but the test will be running in the same way, like how we actually, like when the browser window is open and visible to us, how the test runs. So in the same way, the test will be run, but you don't need to see, you will not see that browser, right? You can't see that and it is not visible to us. It will be done, it will be run in the backend, right? And it will be very fast because it's not like, it's not launched for or visibility, right? So it will be done in the backend and it will be very fast. So now let's actually see the advantages of it. So what's the advantage of it? Advantage of headless. If you run the test in headless mode, so what are the advantages of it is, so the tests run very fast. First thing, execution is very fast, and we can do multiple tasks. So multiple tasks at the same time. So say for example, I'm launching this, right? So and if I'm doing some test, so it has to go sequential, right? So it has to go sequential. So one by one, right? So if you run headless, right? So independent of it, you can run multiple tests. So you can actually automate another test case and run it, right? So in parallel. So you don't need to, you don't need to actually view it and or you don't need to follow an order, right? So you can automate any test case, like n number of test cases in parallel. So it is independent of it and it need not follow the order, right? So like that, you can run multiple tasks. So as it is headless, so you don't need to follow that. And also, uh, you know, while the test is running, right? So if the test is running, if I say, for example, if I am performing some other action in on my machine, right? So the say, for example, mouse over action itself. So we have seen, right, mouse actions, keyboard actions, and in some case, like if mouse is required, right, for the WebDriver, right? So in that case, we are actually interrupting it, right? So in that case, you'll actually get element intercepted exception, right? Element intercepted exception in that case. So because when some action, when you are running a test using Selenium WebDriver, so the browser expects not to perform any action. So any action if you perform, so that will be an interruption to the existing testing, right? So in that case, like you can't do any other tasks in parallel, but headless. So you can actually run this test and you can do any other test. You can work on some other task, right? But the test will be running in the backend. So because the browser is not visible and you are not actually intercepting the browser, right? So you can't interrupt the browser. It's a headless. It will be running internally. You don't see it, but it will be running. The test will be running. So that's the advantage of it. So in that case, what you can do, you can actually work on some other task, right? So you can actually have multiple tasks at the same time. We can achieve multiple tasks at the same time. So that's the advantage of headless. So what's the disadvantage? So what's the limitation of it? So user cannot see the actions on the page, right? So if any new user or if any user wants to understand the functionality of what the test case is being done, right? So then, so understanding of that flow or functionality of the test cannot be done, right? So user cannot actually actions on the web page, cannot understand the flow of the feature, right? This is a limitation because browser is not launched, right? So browser is launched and if some actions are performed, So if as a tester, if I'm a new tester, then if I view that, so then I can understand the flow of the feature, right? But if it is headless, so the browser will not be launched, right? It will be done internally, inside, right? In that case, we can't actually know understand the flow of the feature. That's a limitation of headless. Hope it is clear. Did you get what headless mode is and what's the advantage of it and when we need to run it? So when we wanted to run very quick tests, or when we wanted to run the test very fast, then you can run the execute our test cases in headless mode. So in headless mode, so how do we run it? Using the Chrome options. So Chrome options is a class where we can actually use it to set the preferences of our browser at runtime, right? So this is all about how do you run it on the run your test in headless mode. Hope it is clear. Now let us see next example. So in some cases, if you see this, it says not secure here, right? So this is like HTTPS, but it is not secure in the sense. So we do have something called HTTP and HTTPS. Both are called as like protocols. So when you say HTTPS, S means secure connection with the server, right? But if you say here it is cross mark, so the HTTPS has been crossed with a red line, and it is also says not secure. This is because any browser comes with inbuilt certificate, SSL certificate. So browser is a client, right? So it has to interact with the server. So when you pass some URL, so it actually interacts with the server. So the server will send some certificate. So this is my identity. This is my certificate. Then browser actually verifies it with the existing certificates, inbuilt certificates. The browser can actually authenticate, right? So if those are not the authorized ones, authorized SSL certificate, then it will say it is not secure. So so to keep it short, so when you actually try to actually navigate to some URL, right? So if that server has some insecure SSL certificates. Insecure in the sense browser can't actually trust that SSL certificate. So, so the communication happens with SSL certificates. SSL stands for Secure Socket Layer. So the handshake or the communication happens with the browser and the server when we actually hit the URL in the browser. So that again, that will be done internally, and it is not related to Selenium, first of all, or Java. So this is a common, it's in generic, this is what happens, right? So handshake happens with this type of, like, browser will have some inbuilt SSL certificates. So let me explain it here. So what happens here is, so this is your browser, right? So, and this is your server. Say for example, this is your server. Client in the sense browser. This is your browser. So when a browser sends a request to the server, so server actually sends a SSL certificate. So client will have the list of SSL certificates, some built-in SSL certificates, trusted SSL certificates within it. So if this SSL falls under this category, then client says that it is secure. Yeah, it is secure, is what it will say. That you will come to know by looking at the HTTPS connection. There you will see a lock icon with a green symbol, right? I'll show you that. But if SSL of the server is not present within the list of SSL certificate that browser is trusting, then in that case, we'll get a red cross mark saying it is not secure. But it's up to you. If you wanted to trust that, but I don't know what this SSL certificate, but if you wanted to trust it, you can go ahead and trust it is what it will warn you. Then in that case, manually what we'll do is, we'll actually, if you wanted to proceed with that, then we can proceed. Say for example, I'll show it in other browser. See, this is how it is. Your connection isn't private. It will say, right? Attackers might be trying to steal your information. This warning will be there. It says not secure. It says not secure. Your connection to this site isn't secure, right? It will say this. And you know, if you still wanted to proceed with this, you can say advanced and you can continue to this website, right? It will say unsafe because it doesn't trust it. It doesn't trust. Browser is not able to trust this URL, right? It is not secure. So that's the meaning of it. So if you still wanted to go ahead, you'll click on it, continue to expect bad SSL. Only then you can actually view the next page in that URL, right? So this we wanted to automate it. So if you get like that, so how do you actually accept the insecure SSL certificate from the browser, right? So manually we can click on advanced and we'll say, yeah, proceed, even though if it is unsafe, please proceed is what we can say, right? But how do you do that? How do you do it from code when you're automating, right? So that we'll see now. For that, I'll create a class. I'll just copy this headless Chrome. Rename it and say insecure certificates or handle insecure SSL certificates. We have to change this. Expired bad SSL. So this is a demo one, practice URL. So this is not the real one. So it was given just to demo it for the demo purpose, right? So you can just remove the headless for now. We do have the Chrome options, right? And now I'll show you first without the Chrome options. We don't say assume you don't have Chrome options. You are launching the browser. We are navigating to this exploit.badssl.com. And yeah, you can actually have the title of it or it's up to us. Like you can just put it or let's validate it as well. Exploit.bad.ssl. So I just wanted to validate this. So anyway, even after login also it is the same, right? So it's not required. We'll just have it as, we'll just print it instead. All right, now let me execute it. First, I'll show you without adding the Chrome options. We don't have any Chrome options. We are navigating to that URL, which has the insecure SSL certificate, which browser can't actually trust. So in that case, what happens is, so manually, if we are getting that, we'll read that warning. And if you wanted to still proceed, yeah, you can see, if you still wanted to proceed, what we'll do, we'll click on advanced and we'll say proceed to exploit.badssl.com, right? But in this case, how do we do that? So we can't actually click on this, right? We can't automate this kind of features. So in that case, what we do, how we can handle this is, so you can add the Chrome options. You can have the Chrome options instance and then options dot, there's a method called set accept insecure certificates to true. We need to set this to true. So I know it's an insecure certificate, but still go ahead with the next page is what we are saying. With this method, set accept insecure certificate to true using the Chrome options. This options will pass it to the Chrome driver class as a Chrome driver constructor. So this part will be common. So this Chrome options, creating Chrome options instance and passing that options instance to Chrome driver. This will be common everywhere. Only part changes will be method. So Chrome options has different methods. Each one has one specific task to be done. So that we can achieve, like that method we have to use according to our requirement. Here our requirement is to accept the insecure SSL certificate. So we are using set accept insecure search to true. Right? Now observe. We made only that change, right? So if you see here, this time the browser is launched, it will get, you will not get that. It should go ahead because we have set the option such that even though it is insecure certificate, accept it is what we said. See, it was able to go ahead, right? So you can use set accept insecure certificates to handle or accept the insecure SSL certificate. Now we'll see another one. Like this, we have many Chrome options. So I'm just showing you some of them. So according to our requirement, we can actually use the particular option. So now I wanted to show you Chrome Incognito. So whenever we launch the browser, right? So what happens? So the browser is launched in a new tab, right? So say for example, I wanted to launch in incognito mode. So incognito mode is right click, you see incognito mode, right? New incognito window. So this is incognito window. So it will not actually save the history. This won't change. You can see here, right? Chrome won't save your browsing history. It won't save the cookies and site data. All this, it will not be saved when you actually perform some actions within the incognito mode. So I wanted to run my test in the incognito mode. When the Chrome browser is launched, it has to launch the incognito mode, not the regular uh, browser window, right? So in that case, how do we actually set it? Options dot, we do have a method called options dot add arguments. We have to set a argument called incognito. That's it. So with this argument, browser gets launched in incognito mode. Yeah, you can see now, right? So till now, it used to open in a usual regular browser window, but it's an incognito window this time, if you see. Yeah, the test is done. And if you see, the window is not maximized, right? So let's close this. And you can see test has been passed. All right. So we ran the test in incognito mode. Now I wanted to maximize the window. By default, I wanted to maximize the window. So I don't wanted to use this driver dot manage dot window dot maximize. But how do you actually do it using the Chrome options? So using Chrome options, what we can do is there's an argument called start maximized. So with this, we can actually maximize the window. So this time, observe, the window will be maximized. It opens in incognito mode, and by default, it will be maximized. See, it is not like browser is opened and then it is maximized. So it actually opens the window itself in a maximized mode because we have set that at the Chrome options level. So when whatever you set at the options level, right? Yeah, you can see the maximum one, right? So whatever you set at the options level, then what happens when, and we are passing these options to the Chrome driver, right? Chrome driver constructor. So whenever this is launched, so these options will be applicable at the launch time itself, launching the browser itself. So so it opens the browser in incognito mode, and it also maximizes the window. So like this, you can add more than one arguments as well. So using the options instance, we can add more than one argument as well. So in this case, we have added two. Like we wanted to start in incognito mode as well as the window has to be maximized is what we specified. Like this, say for example, and we can add one more option. For example, so when we launch this, right? So you always see from the beginning, if you observe, we always see this option which says Chrome is being controlled by automated test software, right? You, you can actually manually close this warning. Chrome is being controlled by automated test software, right? So you can close this by clicking on this close button, right? You can do that manually. But how do we actually do it from the code? I don't wanted that option to be displayed when I am running my test. So in that case, what we can do is we can add options dot set experimental option. There's a method called set experimental options where we actually need to pass two parameters to it. Exclude switches and then new string of enable automation. It takes two parameters, set experimental option, exclude switches, and then the second parameter is string array. It's an object actually. You can provide any object. We are providing string array saying enable automation. So if we say enable automation, now if we run it, now if you observe, browser is launched, but you don't see that Chrome is being controlled by automated test software, right? So this is how you can add more arguments using the Chrome options instance. So Chrome options is a class where it has different methods. Like each method can be used to modify the settings of the browser, your Chrome browser. Yeah, it says test pass, right? So if you see, we have added more than one option here, more than one Chrome option. So like this, you can have n number of options, valid options, and then pass it to the Chrome driver. So all this will be applicable to the browser window for that particular test. So we have just seen only some of them. So according to your requirement, you can just say dot here so that you'll see all the available methods here. And most of the time add arguments. So we have to add the arguments of it. You don't need to remember this, but you just need to know this. Like we do have something called a concept called Chrome options, which we can use it to set the preferences of the browser at runtime. So these are applied at the runtime. Is that clear? Hope you got it. Am I audible? You can put your response on the chat box. So we'll proceed with the next topic. I'll show you how to Chrome options, headless limitation, all this we covered. And then, yeah, I think we are good here. I'll just add this, like how you actually run it. So this is an example. Now we'll see. So how to read and write data from Excel sheet. So whenever we wanted to actually read data from in bulk, right? So when we wanted to automate, we need test data. So in order to automate the test cases, we will require test data. So all the test data, we can't hard code it within the code. When you are writing the program, right? When you are writing a Java class, so you can't hard code the values here like this. See title dot equals. So say for example, if it is huge application, right? Then this grows and you can't hard code it like this. So because if there is any change, right? So you don't know at what place you wanted, you need to change that. You need to make that modification, right? So in that case, it will be difficult for us. So always the test data has to be separate from the actual class, actual Java class, right? So in that case, we maintain something called test data. So we can create a folder like, we can create, right click on the folder. You can right click on the project and select folder, new folder, and then you will create a folder, new folder called test data like this. And then you can actually work on it. So you can put all the test data here. Say for example, I wanted to read the Excel sheet. So Excel sheet, I wanted to read Excel file. I wanted to read this Excel file. So how do we read this Excel file? Reading Excel file is, so Excel file, if you see, I'll show you an example. So say for example, this is my Excel sheet. What does Excel sheet contains? So this is called workbook, right? So if you see file, it actually says you blank workbook. If you click on it, a new workbook will be created. So though we call it as an Excel file or Excel sheet, so this is called as workbook internal. So the name is called workbook, right? So when you say blank workbook, a new workbook will be created or a new Excel file will be created. And what will be present in that? So you'll be having the sheets like this. You can create n number of sheets within the Excel sheet, and the extension of it is xlsx, or it used to be xls, right? So Excel file will have two extensions, xls or .xlsx, two formats, right? Now, how do we actually read? Reading in the sense, so we first need to understand the hierarchy of it. So Excel file, and then it has sheet, and within the sheet, what do we have? Say for example, this one, or say a new sheet. So it has rows, right? So these are all rows. So it has rows. And again, each row will have what it will have. It will have cells. So each row, say for example, first row. So I can have something like ABC, or say for example, Java, right? 100. I can have some date or another string like program like this. So these are all cells in my first row, right? Like that, I can have second row, Python 200, something like this, right? So these are rows, and a row will have cells. So Python is one cell in the second row, 200 is another cell, like that, and so on, right? So it can have m number of rows and n number of columns. So first we need to understand this hierarchy. Excel sheet, and then sheet, Excel file, we call this as Excel file or workbook. Sheet, within workbook will have multiple sheets, and within each sheet will have many rows and multiple rows, and each row will have cells in it. So workbook can have sheets. So sheets will have rows. Rows will have each row will have cells. Right? So this is the hierarchy of it. Now, with using this hierarchy, we need to read the cell values. For example, the one which we are read it is this one. So which has 6 rows and 4 columns. Columns in the sense, so we will be calling this as cells. So each row is having 4 cells here. See, like that we have 6 rows. We wanted to read this data and print it on the console. So how do you read it? So this is completely Excel sheet, right? So it is not even related to the Selenium WebDriver. So Selenium WebDriver have no clue about the external files like that. So WebDriver is purely designed for automating the web pages. So this is like desktop application, right? So Selenium can't directly interact with this files. So in that case, we need to depend on the third-party libraries. So we'll be depending on a third-party library called Apache POI. So this is the library we'll be using. So this is a third-party library. Apache POI is a third-party library. So where? So if it is library, right? So we need to get the jars of it. Apache POI library. Jars. So how do you get it? Maven repository. We need to get, just type in Apache POI and you see Apache POI common, right? So as we discussed, Apache is a third-party library, open source library. So you can click on POI and you see the latest version 5.3.0. Just click on it and get this. The Selenium can't automate directly, like we can't read the Excel file directly using the Selenium WebDriver. We are depending on a third-party library called Apache POI, and Apache POI, we need to get the dependency, we need to get the jars of it, right? So we went to Maven repository and we are adding this dependencies here. So the dependency of the Apache POI. So with this, we can use these libraries to read and also write the data into the Excel sheets. So this is one library, and also we need another one. Go back or search here itself. So it is called POI OXML. If you can go back, yeah, this one, second one. So you don't need to get confused. Just type in Apache POI Maven repository. So I'll even provide you this here. So this is the Maven repository. You can directly go to this URL and get the dependencies POI and POI OXML. This is all what we need. So just take the latest version, whatever latest version is available in that Maven. So and then add it here. Just do Control A and right click, go to source and then do format. Or you can use the shortcut as well, Control Shift F. That's it. So you can see here, download sources and Java doc. It is actually downloading the jar files related to this Apache POI and also POI OXML. We just need these two libraries. So with this, we'll get the jar files. And then if you observe, so if you go to Maven dependencies, so if you scroll here, these are the new ones, which was just downloaded. POI OXML, right? And also POI 531 jar. So this was not there before. It got just downloaded now when we add this dependency to the pom.xml. And why did we add this dependencies to the pom.xml? We wanted these libraries. So these are the third-party libraries. Apache is open source, which is providing some third-party libraries. And we wanted to use these libraries to actually read and write data into the Excel sheet. To read the data from Excel sheet and write data into the Excel sheet. So as this can't be done by the built-in Selenium WebDriver, we are depending on the third-party library called Apache POI. So whenever we are saying third-party library, we have to bring in those libraries into our project. So how do you get those libraries into our project? As we created Maven project, we do have something called pom.xml, where we can add the dependencies, third-party library dependencies. So here we added the dependencies. So how did we get these dependencies? We need to go to the Maven repository. We went to Maven repository, just type in the name of whatever is required. So I just type in Apache POI, and these two are the libraries which are required to read the data and also write the data into Excel sheet. So we just added these dependencies to the pom.xml. So with this, what happens is all the required jar files from this Apache POI will be downloaded onto our disk. And we can use this and classes and the methods within this jar files now in our project. All right, now I'll just close this pom.xml and we'll create a new class. So I'll just, okay. new class. Or let me create a new package. I'll just call it as 336. I'll create a new class. I'll call it as read Excel sheet. Now observe. So we have the third-party libraries downloaded, right? So we are going to use that Apache POI to read the data from Excel sheet. So how are we going to do that? So we are going to read this one. So we have put that into. So I'll just not save this. We'll have that copied here in this, in our test data. So it's always a good practice to have it within your project. So we have that in the test data in a folder called test data. I have something called books.xlsx. All right. Now let's start reading the data from the Excel sheet. So how are we going to do that? So we'll be using two classes here. So file input stream is used to, we'll use this to read the data. So this is a Java class. So we'll use Java class to read, to open the file, to open the Excel file. You can actually open any file, open file in read mode. There is another class called output stream, which opens the file in write mode. So these two are important for us. So file input stream, we will use it when we wanted to read the data from Excel sheet, and file output stream, we will use it when we wanted to write data into the Excel sheet. So the first part, file input stream, we will use it because we wanted to read the data from the Excel sheet. File input stream. I'll just say file, new file input stream of. So here we can actually provide this part, the path. The path is test data, right? So you can just say test data / books.xlsx. And it will, it is a file, right? So whenever you are performing some operations on the files, you always needs to, it has to be either put in try-catch block, or you can add the throws exception, throws file not found exception, right? And also, like here, if you wanted to have this, so once you export this, right, export this project, so when you say test data, right, so it might not actually get where it needs to get, where it needs to read from. So in that case, what you can do is you can add one property called. So this file can be anywhere from your disk, right? So you can add it like from your disk. Say for example, C colon Selenium automation, like that, right? But when you actually provide this one to someone else, so then the file might not be available in their on their disk, right? So because you are reading the file from their disk, so in that case it will be a problem. It will throw the file not found exception. So in that case, what you need to do is you actually had this copied onto your project, right? Anyway, so you need to specify that where it is. So where your project is. So read this from the project directory. So in that case, you can specify it like this: system.get property of user.dir is what you need to mention it like this. So it is simple. File input stream. We need to provide a file here. Which file we wanted to open it in read mode, right? So all this is specifying the file path. So you are specifying the file path here, but we wanted to specify the file path. So you are specifying the user directory in the sense, even though if you, so in the current directory, right? So if you export this project, so user directory means that, so in the current existing path, so find project, so find test data and find this file is what we are saying with this, right? All right. Now we have the file, and also we are using file input stream. The file will be opened in read mode. It will be opened in read mode. Now observe, from here it is important. Has been opened. Now we wanted to, file has been, like we actually located the path of it, path of the file. Now observe, we have to start from workbook. So you have to remember this hierarchy: workbook, sheet, rows, cells, right? So first we'll have the workbook. We create a workbook object. So we have a class called new xlsx workbook of file. We'll pass it like this. Now you can import this xlsx workbook from org.apache.poi.xlsx.user model. See, this you will only get it when you add the dependencies to your form.xml. So when you don't add these dependencies of Apache POI, you will not get this option. So xlsx workbook is a class which can be used to actually work with the workbooks, Excel or Excel sheet. So for this, we need to pass the file. So the file, if you pass it, just click on add throws declaration. So if you see here, so it actually, when we are passing the file input stream, we are passing the path of the file, which we wanted to open the file in read mode. This file, we have to pass it to the xlsx workbook class instance. So with this, what happens is, so this file will be treated as an Excel file and it will be opened as an Excel file. So it will treat, so we know that this file is an xlsx format, that is Excel sheet. So we need to open it using the workbook, xlsx workbook, right? So we have created an instance of it and passed this file to it. So the Excel sheet will be opened now with this. Now we have a workbook instance. So which actually opened the Excel sheet, right? So Excel sheet here is called as workbook. So we have workbook opened. Now what we wanted to do according to the hierarchy, then we go to the sheet. So there will be multiple sheets within the, say for example, if you go to this, our example books.xlsx, right? So it is open. So we are here. Now it has multiple sheets. We wanted to read the first sheet. So we have to mention that sheet 1, right? So how do we mention that? Again, like SSF sheet. We need to create sheet, and then where we are getting this sheet from, workbook dot get sheet of, you can mention the sheet name. My sheet name is sheet 1. That's it. So you can also do it with get sheet at. So the same thing can be done like this as well. Workbook dot get sheet at. So in that case, you need to specify the index. Index starts with 0. Both are same. Get sheet, when you say get sheet, you need to provide the name. When you say get sheet at, we need to provide the index. Index here starts with 0. Right? Workbook is an SSF workbook object. Workbook. So with this, we open the file, like we mentioned the file, what the file is, and we also mentioned how the file has to be opened. It has to be opened in read mode. Right? Then we pass this file to this workbook, SSF workbook object. So workbook has been opened. Now, then we are using workbook dot get sheet. We are mentioning which sheet we wanted to work on or read the data from. So we mentioned get sheet of sheet 1. So when you say get sheet method, so we have to provide the sheet name. Or else if you say get sheet at, you have to provide the index. Index starts with 0. So first sheet you wanted to read, if you wanted to read the first sheet, you will provide the index as 0. If you wanted to read the second sheet, you will be providing the index as 1. So, and so on, right? Now, we are in the sheet 1. So, if I open this, we are in this sheet 1. All right. So now we wanted to read each of these rows like this, right? So how do we get how do we read this, all these rows? So we definitely need to write, as it's a number of rows are like 6 rows. So we definitely need to write a loop. All right, we'll write the loop, but how do we actually get the count of these rows? So to get the count of the rows, what we can do is we can use a method called, now we can use sheet object. So workbook is the hierarchy, file is the hierarchy, Excel file. Which we passed it to the workbook. So now we have a workbook instance. Using the workbook instance, we got the sheet, and from the sheet, so if you go back to the hierarchy, rows, then cells, right? So now we need to get the rows from right from the sheet. As we have the sheet object, I'm using sheet dot get last row num. There is a method called get last row num for the sheet. XSF sheet object, there is a method called get last row num, which actually gives you the last row. So as the, again, rows are also starts with 0, gets the last row on the sheet. Note, rows which had content before and were set to empty later might still be counted as rows. So Excel sheet, when you have some rows and if you remove them, right? So still those are counted as the rows. Say for example, in our case, we are thinking that these are the 6 rows, right? Say for example, I had some data here, 7, 8, 9, 10 like that. And later point of time, if I remove this data, so Excel doesn't know about that. You removed it and there is no data. It will still treat this as empty rows and it will give you the count as 10 records, right? That's what it is saying there. So if you read this, get last row now, gets the last row on the sheet. It will get the last row on the sheet. Note, rows which had content before and were set to empty later might still be counted as rows by Excel sheet and Apache POI as well. So the result of this method will include such rows and thus the return value might be higher than the expected, right? So that's the meaning of it. So in our case, there are no records. So it has exactly 6 records. But if you see rows and column cells, index starts with 0, right? So in that case, what happens when we say get last row now? So this is our get last row. This is our last row, right? So when we say get last row, the index of this row will be written. So what is the index of it? So it is not 6. It actually starts with 0. So in the Excel sheet, you will see from 1, but the index actually starts with 0, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So when we say get last row num, it will return as 5. It will return as 5, right? So when we say get last row num, it will return as 5. But the total number of rows are actually 6, right? So we can say total rows like this. Sheet dot get last row num will actually return the last row index. Last row index is in our case it will be 5. But we wanted to get the total number of rows, so that we will use this in the loop to loop through all the rows. So we will be adding 1 to it. So when you add 1 to it, you will get the actual count of the total rows. Why you are adding 1 here? Because the index of the rows starts with 0. So when we say get last row num, so it will actually give you the last row index. So last row index will be 1 less than the actual number of rows, like how we have seen here. So it will actually give you the 5, because the last row index will be 5, because index starts with 0, right? As we need to get the total number of rows, so when we say get last row itself, it will give you 5, which is incorrect, right? So the total rows are actually 6. So we are adding 1 to it. So we got the total number of rows as 6 now in our case. Now, how do you get the cells? Sheet dot get row. We have to provide the row index here. So you can provide any index. I am providing 0. 0 in the sense first row. So get row dot get last cell now. So which actually gives you the count of the cells, count of the number of cells, right? So int total cells. Gets the index of the last cell contained in this row plus 1. So if you observe, so this is how it was designed. For get last row num, it was not designed like this. But if you see, get last cell num is a method gets the index of the last cell contained in this row plus 1. The result also happens to be one based column number of the last cell, right? So in this case, what happens? It will be one based column number of the last cell. This value can be used as a standard upper bound when iterating over cells. All right. So if you see here, it is saying get first cell num, get last cell num, get last cell num. In the sense, it will give you the last cell number along with plus 1. You don't need to add this plus 1 like how we did it for the rows. They actually did that for us. The design itself like that is that like that. So for cells, you don't need to add that one. So it will be like, it will be like you get the count, the actual count. You don't need to add this one. So you always needs to read the method whenever you are using some new method, right? So you always need to read the description of it. That's how you will actually get it, how to use it. They will also give you some example as well. With that, you will get a clear understanding, right? So if we read it, the description of the get last row num, it was clear for us. It was saying it gets the last row on the sheet, right? But get last cell num, it is saying gets the index of the last cell contained in this row plus 1, it is saying. So it will return plus 1. So so in our case, we have 4 cells. So if it was index 0, 1, 2, 3, right? If it was index, it should have written 3. Actually, it has to return 3, but it is saying gets the index of the last cell contained in this row plus 1, meaning 3 plus 1, 4. So you'll get the count as total cells as 4. All right. So now let's print this on the console. I'll just say number of rows we have is total rows. And what are the total number of cells we have in each row? So number of cells in each row is total cells. Now we wanted to read the data from it. So how do we read it? We can write a loop here. So row equal to, I'll start row index with 0. So row or cell index starts with 0. Row less than total rows, row plus plus. For each row, what we wanted to do? First, we wanted to get the row, right? So what we can do is, you can just say current row sheet dot get row of. So I'll be using this index get row of row. Row in the sense we have written a loop for it, outer loop for rows, reading the rows. So when we say sheet, this is the sheet which we opened, right? Get row. What row I wanted to read? I wanted to read the first, say for example, in the first case, 0, right? First row, which starts with the index 0, right? Index starts with 0. So xsf row, you have to import this. Now we have read the row. All right. Now for this row, each row, we have to read the column as well, right? So cell less than total cells, cell plus plus. What we wanted to do? We wanted to get the value of each cell. So how do you get it? Again, we have something called XSF cell. Easy to remember this. So workbook XSF, you just need to prefix XSSF, right? For workbook, sheet, row, cell, 4 classes. Cell equal to, what's the current row? Current row dot get cell of index. You just need to import this class, cell class. Change type of cell to int. It is int, right? Okay, I have given it like this, get cell of. The method get cell of int in the type x is not a blue color. So this is, if we say int, it is in cell again. Okay, this is also cell, this is also cell, right? So what we can do is, I'll change the column of it, name of it. We can have it something like this. C++, right? C. Get cell of C. So what did we do here? We have written an outer loop, outer for loop, which is used uh, for reading the rows, right? So how are we reading the rows? Sheet dot get row, and we are passing the row index. With this, we get the row. Say for example, for the first time, we'll get the first row. So the current row is zeroth row. No, first row is indicated with the zeroth index. So we are in the current row now. Current row, which is zeroth, represented with zero. Current row. Then we are having to read all the cells. We have the inner loop, another loop, because we have to read all the rows, right? So for the first time, we are pointing to the first row and reading all these values. So to read all the values, each one is one cell, right? So in order to read all the cells, we wrote another for loop, inner for loop. So till all the total cells is completed, index starting with 0. So for that, we are using xlsx cell is a class. So each cell we can read it using the current row. So current row dot get cell is a method, and we have to pass the index to it. So with this, it actually gives you the cell value. So this cell value, you wanted to print it on the console. So it is similar to like how we actually did it for web table, if you remember. So the same rows and columns, we did it for, at the beginning, we did it for the uh, two-dimensional array. And also we did it in the, when we are discussing about Selenium concepts, uh, when we are actually automating web table, we had this. So rows and columns concept. And now it is there for the Excel sheet as well. So whenever there are rows and columns, you just need to remember it is index based. And also you have to write two loops. One for loop, outer for loop is for reading the rows. Second for loop, inner for loop is for reading the columns. So simple. If you can practice it, right? So it will be simpler for you. So what did we do? Outer for loop, rows. Then we got the row, and using this row, will write another inner loop, which we'll use here for reading the cell values of that particular row. So once we are done with reading all these cells, right, within that row. So once we complete the row, so we have to go to the second row. Second row in the sense new line, right? So you just need to have the new line. Here you don't need to have the new line after reading each cell value. So they have to be side by side. So I'm just using print method instead of println. So we use println when we wanted a new line character. So after each row, right? So this actually is representing one row. So all the cells of a particular row, right? Once it is done, we wanted to go to the next line. So we are adding system.out.println. So once this is done, so it will go back to the second row. So row plus plus, it will be row one. Again, sheet dot get row of one. So the second row will be red. Again, for the second row, so the complete all cells will be red using this inner for loop and so on, right? That's it. Once we are done with this, we have to close we need to remember we have to close this workbook as well as file. This is important. File also we need to close. That's it. Now, if you run this, it has to read the data from that Excel sheet. Yeah, you can see it has read the rows. Number of rows, 6. Number of cells is 4, right? So number of rows are 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. And number of cells are 4, right? And you can see the data here. The same data is present here, right? It is displayed in rows and cells format. So this is how you actually read the data from an Excel sheet. Hope it is clear. Any questions? Do you understand this? How to read data from an Excel sheet? It's all about hierarchy and how do you read the rows and columns. It's all about hierarchy. Okay, yeah. Now we'll see how to write data into an Excel sheet. I'll create a new class. I'll call it as write to Excel sheet. How do we write data to Excel sheet? Now, if you observe, like what did we say? File input stream, right? So we'll create a file output stream so that we can use the file will be opened in a write mode. File output stream. Better I'll use same path, the same line I'll use here. Here, instead of input, we'll just call it as output. And here we wanted to open a file and we wanted to write something into the file, right? So we can just say my file, or we can just say my Excel file. I wanted to write it into the same directory. File output stream. So this file is not there. If you observe, my Excel file is not there here within the test data. So this file should be created and it has to be created within this test data folder, right? Now let us see how to write the data. So same. First we need workbook. It's an Excel sheet, right? So we'll create a workbook. New XSF workbook. We have workbook now. Then workbook. After that, we need to get the sheet. We need to create the sheet, right? So this, if you remember, we are not reading the data. We are writing the data. So workbook dot create sheet. So there's a method called create sheet where we need to provide the sheet name. You can provide the sheet name here. You can just say my sheet. Right? What are we doing here? We are creating a workbook and then we are actually creating a workbook, right? And then we are creating a sheet. So with this, we just created a workbook instance, right? We just created a workbook instance. And then what we are doing, using this instance, we are creating within that workbook, we are creating a sheet, right? We are calling the sheet name as my sheet. All right. Now, what we wanted to do, we wanted to create the rows within the sheet. So for that, we can use XSF row. I'll just call my row as row 1 and then sheet dot. Now observe, create row. So create row. We need to pass the index. Create row, pass the index. Create row, which actually creates the first row. We have to specify the index of it. So first row has been created. So with this, what we can do, row 1 dot. Now you can create the cells. So if you observe, everything is like earlier it used to be get because it's a read. Now it is create. So only the methods are starting with create. Earlier, the methods are used to start with get as a prefix. That's the only difference. So get is because to read the data, existing data. Create is used to create a new data. So we are using create. Create sheet creates a new sheet. Create row, creating a new row within the sheet. Now create cell is creating a new cell within this row, right? Cell of 0 dot set cell value. Create cell, it creates a cell, but we have to set some value to it, right? So you can set some value to it. You can just say something like item. Row 1 dot. Like this, you can create a number of cells, right? So this is my row, first row. So maybe I'll use it as my header. say, for example, rating, and then what it is about. This has to be 1. This has to be 2. Like this. So this is my first row. I'm using first row for headers. So in the same way, now I'll actually create the data. So row 2. So create row of 1. So row 2, so it will be 1, right? So index starts with 0. Now I'll set the values. I'll set the values as item Java, maybe rating as 5. This is programming language. I'll just say programming like this. Any data, you can add it. Create row 2, right? So this is my row 3. You can provide some value here. I'll just say Python 4. I can just say programming again. Any data you can add like this. You don't need to have only 3 cells, right? So I'm adding only, for example, 3 cells and 3 rows. Only 2 rows I've selected, but you can take it to three rows as well, 3 rows of data as well. Row 4, create row of 3, right? And maybe you can call it as scripting language, some JavaScript. You can give the rating like this. Like this, go on, you can create the number of rows. So once you actually create all the rows, right? So all those rows, so sheet is actually having these rows, if you observe. Sheet dot create row. Sheet is actually creating, so within the sheet, so we are creating these rows. So once we are done with this, so what this sheet is like again, so workbook has created this sheet, right? So we can use this workbook now. So if you observe this workbook dot write file. So if you observe, we didn't pass this file to here, XXF workbook. So we are doing it at the end. So once we are done with writing this file, so we will use this workbook. Within this workbook, we are actually working on now. So we created the sheet, right? And we did created the rows in it, right? So using this workbook, we are using a method called write, and then we are passing this file. We wanted to write this workbook, right? Write into this workbook. All that what we did till now. And then finally we'll close the workbook. Close, and then we'll close the file. Just for our reference, you can just say file created, or you can just say Excel file created. So simple than reading, right? So reading, it involves get. So both are like same. We just need to know the hierarchy, workbook, sheet, row, and cell. And here we are using the methods create. So there you used to use get sheet, get row, get cell. We are using create sheet, create row, create cell. That's all. And to set the value, we are using set value, right? So we use get cell here, right? So in the same way, we are using set cell value. That's it, right? And file output stream we are using because we wanted to open the file in write mode. And finally, we need to write the workbook like this using the write method, and we'll close the workbook and file. That's all. So when we run this, yeah, it says Excel file created, right? So if you go back, refresh this project, so you see new file has been created, my Excel file. So if you see here, it actually creates only JavaScript scripting. Okay. So it has to actually create all the rows. Is it my sheet first of all? Yeah, it's a my sheet. My sheet, and it has to create all the records. It is actually there seems to be some problem with it. It actually created only this row, but it should actually create all the rows of it. So workbook dot create sheet my sheet, and then yeah, create row is fine. Within each row, we are creating one, like using row 2 Okay. Yeah, if you see here, what the issue is, so as we copied, so we have had all this overridden. This is row 2, right? So this is row 2. Row 2, within row 2, you have to create the cell. This is row 3. So you have to be careful when you are doing copy paste. And now we'll be getting the data in the Excel file. So just this Excel file created, you can just refresh it. Okay, I just close it. So if you can go back to test data, open the Excel file, you can see it now. Yeah, you can see the data, right? So you can see the data, item, rating, type, like this, the data. Like this, you can write n number of rows into it. And if you wanted to customize it, or if you wanted to, if you don't wanted to give the value, like this, static values, within hard code the values, you can read it from the using the scanner class. You can read the data from the console by using the scanner class. You know how to use the scanner class, right? So that way you can use the scanner class. You can just put this entire thing in a loop, and then you can read the values dynamically from the console. And then finally you'll write it to the workbook. Is that clear? So this is how you actually write the data into an Excel sheet. So if you observe, what did we do here? For reading and writing Excel files, Selenium can't be directly used. So Selenium doesn't have any inbuilt methods to actually read or write data into the Excel sheet. So for that, we need to depend on a third-party library called Apache POI. So Apache POI library supports reading and writing the Excel files data. So the Excel file hierarchy is like this: workbook and a sheet within it. So each sheet will have rows, each row will have cells. So using this hierarchy, like the methods are also provided like that using this hierarchy. So using that and using the file input stream and file output stream, we are able to read and write data into the Excel sheet. Hope it is clear. So using this concept, we'll be seeing the data-driven testing. So this is very important. This Excel sheet reading and writing the data into the Excel sheet is very important when we are doing the data-driven testing. All right. So hope it is clear and you don't have any questions. So I think we can stop here, and in the next session, we'll actually see how to do the data-driven testing. Okay, let me stop here.